So gratitude as a universal human experience. Gratitude as a universal human experience. You know, while Thanksgiving is really celebrated in the US and in Canada as a national holiday, right? Celebrated as a national holiday. The idea of Thanksgiving is not unique to the US or to Canada. In many countries in Europe, there are celebrations and traditions around harvest and festival and gathering together. And it may not always be at exactly the same time each year as we tend to do here and as is done in Canada. In Canada, it is the second Monday in October, so they've already had their Thanksgiving. And for us, it is, of course, our fourth Thursday in November. But not only is it the idea of the celebration of abundance and the celebration of harvest, there is also an analogous traditions of the same kind of experience of gratitude, of thankfulness in many of the world's religions, called by different names, but all wrapped with this idea of gratitude. In Hinduism, there's a celebration called Pongal or Sankranti, and it's celebrated in South India. It's a harvest festival. It's a time of giving thanks for the abundant harvest. In Buddhism, specifically Theravada Buddhism, there is a ceremony called, I think I'm saying it right, the Kathina ceremony, and it's held annually at the end of the rainy season and in appreciation for an abundant harvest. But it's also wrapped up with the idea that lay Buddhists bring gifts, sometimes robes, sometimes special gifts that they bring to their spiritual teachers, to the monastic people in their country. And they give these in appreciation for the spiritual lessons and the spiritual teachings of their monks and their monastics, which I thought that's a beautiful kind of way of recognizing not just the abundance of physical food, but the value of spiritual nourishment, right? There is a certain kind of nourishment that I think we all long for. Some people call it the missing piece is a God piece, although that word can be really charged for a lot of people, the word God, because it conjures up a God that those of us in New Thought don't believe in. We don't believe in an anthropomorphic God, a physical being sitting somewhere in judgment of us, but as a divine presence that animates all of life, the very ground of being from which we come, a very benevolent energy and presence. But this idea that the Theravada Buddhists have of acknowledging the nourishment of the food of spiritual presence and spiritual teaching, I think is really important, and there's a gift in that. In Judaism, there's the feast of the tabernacle and ritual around that, and the celebration of the Israelites' freedom from the Israelites, the Jews' freedom from Egypt, and all of this idea of coming together with this feeling of gratitude, this feeling of appreciation. As I think about it, in most all of the traditions, in most all of the celebrations that seem to be universal, there is a common thread, a couple of common threads. And one of the common threads is that the celebration, the experience, is not done in isolation. It's done in community. Think about that. It's done in community. I mean, if you think about it, our Thanksgiving feast, the way most of us in the U.S. celebrate Thanksgiving, the Thanksgiving dinner is a quintessential expression of that, right? Of sharing it communally. And perhaps that's why those of us dealing with our feelings about the election, right? Some of us are celebrating, some of us are not celebrating the results, but we're maybe mindful of Thanksgiving and like, who's going to be at the dinner table and what can I say and what shouldn't I say and what's the energy going to be? Am I talking to anybody else in this room? Right? But it's because, forgetting the politics of it at a moment, it's because we long to come together. And I think we long to come together in an atmosphere of joy, in an atmosphere of acceptance, in an atmosphere of love. And that's what these gatherings, one of the common threads and one of the beautiful expressions of these gatherings is about, the communal aspect of it. Another thread is that in many of these celebrations, there is the practice, even if it's not really spoken of directly, there is the echo of the practice of awareness of abundance itself. That the reason we are celebrating is we have experienced abundance, abundance of the harvest, abundance of good. We know in metaphysics how important it is to be aware of our blessings, right? To bring them to mind, to bring them to awareness, not to take it for granted. And so there's this thread, I think, in all of these various ways of giving thanks. There's this thread of awareness of plenty, awareness of abundance. It also, I think, there's a thread of giving back, right? We know that the cycle of nature itself is a cycle of reciprocity. Every gardener, every farmer knows that, right? And any farmer that is mindful and is smart knows you don't hold back the good stuff. You give the good stuff. You plant the good stuff. You make sure that you're seeding the future with the good stuff. In so doing, you are preparing for even greater bounty by that practice. And so it is this idea of mindfulness of the abundance, the idea of giving the best that we have. And it's not equal. The best that I can give may be much different than the best that you can give. But it's this willingness to be aware of abundance and to give in a way that is more bountiful. How many of you, and you can nod your head if this applies to you, when you host Thanksgiving, if you host Thanksgiving, or if you bring something to a Thanksgiving celebration, you go out of your way to have it be a little bit more special than an ordinary meal. Am I right? Right? The idea of wanting to give the best that we have, whatever that is. And that's such a metaphysical practice, really, a deep spiritual practice that we grow when we recognize the good in our life. That is an aspect of personal growth. When we recognize the good in our life, when we choose to share of what we know, of what we have, that is a metaphysical spiritual practice. So this idea of communal gathering in an atmosphere of thankfulness, this practice of being mindful of abundance and of sharing from whatever bounty we have, is a rich spiritual practice and tradition. However, in many ways, few people know that gratitude and appreciation, few people know that gratitude and appreciation are powerful heart energetics that give us access to higher brain states. Gratitude and appreciation are heart energetics that give us access to higher brain states. Do you wish you had a higher brain state? Would that be helpful in any area of your life? Business, navigating difficult relationships? Of course it would, no matter how smart we are, right? No matter how smart we are, no matter how many things we have learned, who wouldn't appreciate being able to bump that up a little bit more, to have even higher states of brain activity? Some of you in this room may be aware of an organization that's been in existence now for several decades called the Institute of Heart Math. The Institute of Heart Math. And if you're not familiar with them, I encourage you to go online and look them up, the Institute of Heart Math. Their purpose, Heart Math's purpose is to help people align their physical, mental, and emotional systems with their heart's intuitive guidance. And they have over many decades done scientific research and study on the efficacy of certain states, emotional states that are held gently in practice, and the impact that holding certain states gently in practice have on brainwave activity. And there are 4 emotions that help to bring the brain into higher states of activity by bringing the heart into a state of coherence. And the top one is not the one that most people in New Thought think it is. Most people in New Thought think it would be love or compassion. The one that brings the heart into coherence the greatest and most consistently, and therefore in the act of bringing the heart into coherence, puts a person into higher brain wave activity, is the practice of gratitude. The practice of gratitude. Recent evidence from brain imaging studies shows the brain's reward center lighting up when we're feeling grateful. So not just the feeling of feeling grateful, but there's activity corresponding at that same time in our brains, lifting us to a level of clarity or a level of wisdom or intuition that otherwise we're probably not tapping into in the same way or the same consistency. So the practice of gratitude, and not just saying thank you, although I think we could use a lot more of that in our culture nowadays than we see. It's not just saying thank you, it's feeling, practicing, holding the feeling of gratitude, the feel-good neurotransmitters in the brain, practicing calling that to awareness, that to awareness. If I ask you to bring up a memory, recent is better, but past is fine, of really feeling grateful about something, can you bring it to mind? And can you make it so alive in you right now that you can actually feel it? That's like you can step right back into that feeling of gratitude you had when or for that thing happening. If we could have hooked you up, your brain up to the right kinds of measuring devices, we would see that activity in your brain. So my mother and I were grocery shopping on Thursday, just this past Thursday. We were going to go to Sprouts, we were going to go to Trader Joe's, and then we were going to go to Costco. That's a full day. That's a full day, and that's just day 1 of preliminary shopping for Thanksgiving. I told you I'm really into Thanksgiving. So we leave the house, and we get over to Sprouts. We get out of the car, we take our time, and I always park, in the South 40 because I still try to take care of my car. So I park far away. Mom gets out of the car, I get out of the car. We walk all the way through the parking lot into Sprouts. And she doesn't need to buy anything, but I do, so I buy groceries. And we walk back to my car, and then we go over to Trader Joe's. And we get out of the car, parked far away from Trader Joe's, walk all the way across the parking lot into Trader Joe's. Oh, by the way, when my mom's in Sprouts, she's going up and down every aisle, looking, to see all different kinds of things. And when we're in Trader Joe's, she's got her cart. She's looking for her things now. I'm getting mine. And if you know me, I know exactly what I need, where it is. I'm going to go get it because I'm on a mission because I got to go to Costco. And I want to be loving and kind when I'm there. So Mom and I both get to the checkout aisle at the same time in Trader Joe's, and my mom's frantic. She says, I can't find my wallet. And it has everything in it. It's one of those little tiny credit card things, but it has her California Real ID, her Social Security card, her Medicare card, her health card, her Costco card, and every credit card she has. What do you think we did? Oh my gosh. I buy my groceries, I buy her groceries. I say, let's get in the car. Let's retrace all of our steps in Trader Joe's. Where were you? Did you hear anything drop? Did you reach far? Up and down the aisles, leaving our information with the Trader Joe's people. Please call us if you find this. This is really important. She can't get on a plane in 2 weeks if she doesn't have an ID. This is a really big deal. The credit cards we can cancel. You know what that feels like, right? Up and down the parking lot. This is when I wish I had parked really close to Trader Joe's, but I didn't. Which aisle did we park? And Mom, I don't remember, trying to find it, going through her purse a bazillion times. Have you ever done that, right? You think, okay, it really is in there. It really's got to be in there, but it's not in there. So back to Sprouts, going up and down the parking lot. No little credit card thing in the store, up and down every single aisle. No credit card thing. Meanwhile, the groceries that need to get in the fridge, Costco's put on the back burner. We drive home. I say, maybe, just maybe, you thought you put it in your purse? I mean, we've all done stuff like that, right? Maybe you thought you put it in your purse, and maybe we're going to find it when we get home. So let's get home. We'll put all this stuff in the house. We'll look again, and then I'll go back out again, and we'll look some more, and maybe we can find it. So we're unloading the car, and I'm going through my brain thinking, oh my gosh, how am I going to get her an ID when I don't have her birth certificate? She needs to get on a plane. All of these practical things, right? And there's a knock on my door. I open the door. There's a gentleman standing in front of me with her credit card piece. Can you imagine? I'm screaming for my mother. She's in the other part of the house. Mom, you won't believe this. I look at the young man. Can I give you a hug? He said, okay, give us a great big hug. I said, oh my gosh, what's your name? Brandon. Oh, Brandon, you have no idea. I am so great. Mom, come. And the look on her face and my face, complete relief and absolute gratitude. Absolute gratitude. Can feel it in this moment. He leaves. I say to her, you've got one heck of a good karma. You are one lucky lady. We are really, really blessed. That overwhelming feeling of gratitude. I wish they could have hooked me up. You would have seen my brain far brighter than that Christmas tree over there with the feeling of gratitude. And then I said, we didn't get his last name. We didn't offer, other than our absolute immeasurable gratitude to him, we didn't offer to give him something, to do something. We've got to find him. This is when the higher state, the higher brain state kicked in, because Brandon didn't give me, and I did not get his last name. I did not get any contact information. I did look at my Ring camera history, and I saw the front end of his car, and I thought, I'm going to zoom in. I should be able to get his license plate. No way. The angle was no way could I get his license plate. But the neurotransmitters were on overdrive. I said, Mom, we're going to find him. We are going to find him. I will not go into the rest of the story because there's too many fun and crazy details. There were just a couple of things that he said to me that we wound up tracking him down. Wound up tracking him down and then going to his place of work the next day with a gift. Gratitude opens the doors to so much. I'm convinced, first of all, incredibly grateful for our very good fortune there, but also convinced that something happened up here that allowed me to be able to figure out how I was going to find this guy. He was flabbergasted. He said, he told me his girlfriend and his adult sons were saying, well, maybe she works for the police department. Maybe she's got somebody in law enforcement. God maybe, but maybe somebody in law enforcement. Maybe somehow she's able to do things that the ordinary person can't do. But no. So I just want to close with a couple of practical things about gratitude. And the practical things are, we all know the value, I think we do, we all know the value of keeping things like a gratitude journal, right? As a way of keeping alive in our day-to-day living the awareness of the blessings we have. It does not mean that we sugarcoat the difficulties we're experiencing. We may be experiencing financial difficulty or all sorts of difficulties, but it doesn't keep us from recognizing and training ourselves to look for the things that are working. There's a scripture that says, in all things give thanks. I am so grateful for the preposition in, because that's very different than saying, for all things give thanks. I can't, maybe you can, I can't give thanks for all things. There are things I look at in the world that I'm not going to give thanks for that. But even in the midst of that, I can be thankful. I can find something in it, not about it, but in it, for which I can be grateful. Does that make sense? Here's kind of an example of that. It's attributed to the Buddha, but I'm not sure if that's correct. But I like what it says. Let us rise up and be thankful, for if we didn't learn a lot today, at least we learned a little. And if we didn't learn a little, at least we didn't get sick. And if we got sick, at least we didn't die. So let us all be thankful. Doesn't sound like the Buddha teachings, I know, but I like that, right? That's what it means. In all things, give thanks. So in even the most difficult experiences, we can give thanks. We really can. I'm not saying it's easy, but I know it's powerful. And simple things like keeping a gratitude journal is one way to keep that alive in our minds. Bringing back some of the practices that maybe many of us grew up with, like saying grace before a meal, and not just at Thanksgiving time, but and even if, maybe we live alone. So maybe it's just about taking a moment before we take that first spoonful or forkful to just pause for a moment and be grateful for the very fact that we're about to put something in our mouth, because not everybody is blessed in that way. And that food, whatever it is, there was a whole journey before it ever got to our place on our fork or on our spoon. And just remembering those things, I think, keeps us alive in a way, and our hearts open in a way that are incredibly important and very, very, very necessary if we're going to be instruments of helping to create a more loving, a more kind, a more equitable, and a more just world. And then the last idea that I would share with you is one that came to me a while ago, a couple of months ago. I'm going to call it a voluntary do without for a day or two. A voluntary do without for a day or two. We in metaphysics speak a lot about abundance and prosperity consciousness, and sometimes I think we overemphasize that and we forget gratitude and appreciation. This idea of a voluntary do without for a day or two is, I don't mean it to be done from a place of deprivation, but from a place of increased awareness, and there's a big difference. And it came about for me in my family, but me in particular, in a very, very real way a few months ago. We had another slab leak at our house. We've had a couple of them. We had another one, and so for a period of a couple of weeks, while they were trying to figure out what pipe was breaking through walls, pulling out my china cabinet, emptying stuff, a big, big mess, only to discover the first pipes that they thought were the culprits were not the culprits, then trying to find check another part of the house to find what was leaking. So all that to say that it was probably a good couple of weeks or more that we had no water to the house Yeah, I know, really inconvenient. You stop and think about how many times you turn the water on for something, right? So in order to shower, in order to brush our teeth, in order to wash a dish, it would be going outside, turning the water on the main for just a half an hour or an hour to do what absolutely had to be done, and then turning it off. Well, the first few days you say, that's okay. A couple of weeks of that, and it's like, oh my gosh. You would have thought I would have thought I won the lottery when they fixed everything and I did not have to go outside and turn the water onto the main of my house. And it was one of those moments where I said, oh my gosh, here's a really powerful example, Wendy, of how often you take running water in your house for granted. Do any of you? Maybe you do, maybe you don't. But there are so many things that I think it's so easy for us to take for granted. And that one way maybe to increase our awareness and our appreciation is to voluntarily say, you know what? For a day, for 2 days, I'm going to do without blah. I'd rather do without my water, I discovered, than my internet. I thought, I'd rather do without my water than my internet, right? I don't know what that would be for you, and it may not be something you want to do. But I do know that there was a real gift in that experience for me of really being appreciative of something that I take as a basic thing, and that's the ability to turn a tap and there's my water without having to go outside in the cold or in the dark with a flashlight to turn it on or to turn it off. So take a breath with me. And my prayer for you, my community, and my virtual community, is that this Thanksgiving, however you spend it, with whomever you spend it, that your hearts will be full and that your spirit, your soul, will be nourished and fed, that you will experience love and joy and hope and optimism, and that whatever is really in your mind and heart that really matters to you, it's my prayer that that will come to fruition for you. And with that, I say happy pre-Thanksgiving and God bless.